Do you ever clean your glasses and then you turn around and they're freaking filthy again and you have to clean them? Like cleaning them made them worse than they were in the first place. Can you guys tell when my glasses are dirty? Hey, sports fan. So this was actually supposed to be May and July's wrap-ups together. I didn't read a lot in May, and I went ahead and recorded that wrap-up, and it was just so short and I didn't have a lot to talk about that I said to myself, let's come back at the end of July and we'll do a separate July wrap-up, and then we'll just put them together. And it'll be a 2-month wrap-up, but it will be about more books that I finished. That didn't happen, obviously, because it is currently mid-June. I fell into a pretty complete reading slump. I'm trying to get out of it, and I'm actually going to record a whole video talking about my experience in a reading slump. But suffice to say, I finished one book in July. I don't have as much to talk about as I had hoped. I only have one additional book, but I still wanted to go ahead and get May's wrap up and I guess this one book wrap up out and published. Hopefully I will have this published this week. I actually recorded this video and 2 other entire videos over the weekend, and I did not have my microphone plugged in correctly, so I didn't have any usable audio on those videos at all. I had to just delete them and start over. So I wanted to have this video out like 2 or 3 days ago, and it just didn't happen because no audio. It was very discouraging, and I've been feeling already discouraged, which I will talk about separately, but it was very frustrating. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into that May wrap up. You will see me 2 months ago, and then present day me will come back and talk about one book. Hey sports fan, today's going to be a short and sweet, just simple wrap up of everything I read in May. I only read 4 books in May. My birthday is in the last week of the month, so I was busy most of that week. I was busy kind of leading up to that, and I've had stuff going on in my personal life, which I think I should have a video explaining what's been going on before I post this one. But if I don't have the video up, spoiler alert, I am 15 weeks pregnant right now. So that has been taking up a lot of my time, making me really exhausted and not super motivated to do much of anything. Now that I'm out of that first like 12 to 14 weeks, I am starting to feel a little bit more energy, a little bit more motivated, but that has translated into doing all of the stuff that I had been kind of putting off for 3 months. So like really catching up with housework and getting our home back to the state that I prefer it to be in, as far as like being kind of clean and not necessarily organized, but things just put up and not having messes everywhere. And then getting back on track with like meal planning and making sure that I'm making dinner more nights per week than I'm not making dinner. And then I'm also trying to prep freezer meals for when I'm postpartum, because speaking from experience, I'm not gonna wanna cook postpartum. Just having those freezer meals made and ready to go is so easy, because all we have to do, I don't even have to do it. My husband can just pull one out of the freezer when he leaves for work in the morning, and we can throw it in the oven when he gets home. Maybe that was too much explanation, but the point that I'm getting to is that I just haven't felt very motivated and haven't had a lot of energy to sit down in front of a camera and record and talk about the books that I'm reading. I haven't even really had a lot of energy to read. So May was not the best month as far as like my reading progress and my goals and stuff. I'm not holding myself to anything strict. I think that I'm doing great for the year. I've read more books at this point, like halfway through the year, this year, than I have in probably the last 10 years. So I'm well on track to hit like my yearly goal, which is just 24. I've read 21 books as of today, which is June 10th. So I am well on track to hit my goal of 24. My goal was just to read 2 books every month of the year, and anything over 24 is just extra accomplishment in my back pocket. With all that out of the way, let's just jump right into what I read in the month of May. The first book that I read in May was actually an ARC. I know, who am I? It's called The Ship of Death by Kyle Winkler. I really enjoyed it. I gave this 4 stars. If I gave half-star ratings, I would probably give it a 3.5, but I liked it more than a 3, so I'm rounding up to a 4, if that makes any sense. I don't like to give partial star ratings because I feel like it's a slippery slope into being one of those people who's like, I gave this a 3.86. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing math to rate my books. If you do that, that's great, and I'm happy for you. You are like a true type A. That's not the sort of life I'm living. I like to stick to a whole star rating because it definitely forces me to pick one. If I let myself go in between on like that scale, it just gets a little bit too convoluted. All of that to say that I gave The Ship of Death 4 stars. I thought that it was really creepy where it needed to be creepy. It was really weird where it needed to be weird. The characters were so weird and creepy and sometimes like grotesque when they needed to be, and it was just very satisfying. It really takes the premise of a haunted or cursed board game and dials it up to 1,000,000. It's technically not a haunted or cursed board game, but that's kind of the trope that I'm associating with it, if that makes any sense. It kind of takes that idea and goes in a whole new direction. I love D&D. Maybe I shouldn't admit that. I don't know. I enjoy tabletop role-playing games. This was like a lot of fun for me personally. Honestly, I kind of want to play the game, except I don't want to play the game like the version of it in this book. The book is written in like this found footage style. It's written in journal entries, like police logs, 911 calls, after game notes that are taken by the main character, and some newspaper reports and like forum posts online. So it is an interesting style to write this book in. I've never read a book in this style that I can think of. I wasn't sure if that was something I was going to enjoy, but I think it works really well. With the only caveat being, I kind of wish that it was just a third-person narration so that we could have more of Colin Lorraine's life before the game. I wanted to get to know these characters beyond this one situation that we see them in. There were a couple of weird things with the writing, and I think it just comes down to diction. There were strange word choices that did take me out of the book for a little bit, and I don't know if it was intentional to try to create the atmosphere while you're reading, or if it's just that the author is overestimating my intelligence. But overall, I did really enjoy it. If you're looking for something spooky for like the Halloween season, I would say pick this up, give it a read. It comes out in September of this year, I believe. Next up in May, I read Coup de Grace by Sophia Ajram. I'm currently editing a full video just tearing into this book because I hated it. This is one of the worst books I've ever read, and I wish I hadn't read it. It takes up space in my brain now. I can't wait to forget that this book exists. I gave it 1 star. I don't give 0-star ratings. If I did, this would probably be a 0 star. The 1 star that this book has is kind of like the, well, shit, I couldn't do it kind of star. I've never written a book, so that's an accomplishment. You put words on a page and somebody published it, so that is the 1 star that you're getting. I hated every minute of this book with every fiber of my being. I'm sorry. I don't want to get started because I hated it so much. If you've read this and you enjoyed it, could you please tell me why? Because I just don't understand. It's just so bad. Everything about it is bad. The writing is bad. The character sucks. The, I guess, analogy or the simile also doesn't make any sense. The place doesn't make sense. The things that happen there don't make sense. It feels like a book that hates depressed people. it feels like the takeaway from this book is that if you're depressed, then you should just end it. And I think that's a shitty take. It also feels like the author thinks that this is like some sort of world-altering, like life-saving piece of work. It simultaneously feels like she thinks that she's going to save everybody who has depression with this book, but that also if you have depression, you don't deserve to live. Somehow it is one of the shortest little books I've ever read, but also the longest. It is so incredibly bloated and weighed down with the most insane writing that I've ever read. And I've read House of Leaves, okay? House of Leaves is more coherent than this book. Take that and make of it what you will. I hated this. It was terrible. Please don't read it. The next book I read was The Sisters of Crimson House by Melissa Anderson Sweezy. This was another ARC provided by Landmark Publishing that I got through NetGalley, and I really enjoyed it. This was another one that I would kind of give somewhere between 3 and 4 stars, but I enjoyed it a lot more than a 3 stars, so I rounded it up to 4. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought the characters were really interesting. I thought that the story was interesting. It was a little bit spooky, but not very spooky. It was more mysterious than scary. My one big problem is that at the end, I felt like there wasn't a lot of resolution for like the villain character. It's not really a villain. But I don't want to go too far into it because I don't want to straight up spoil it. The meat of this story is about 2 sisters, Charlie and Miranda, and they are the youngest sisters in a long matriarchal line of mystical women. They are women who are all born with kind of a pentagram scar on their hand, and this indicates that they have some sort of mystical ability, whether it's like seeing people's true aura, being able to see someone's future, to see someone's death, channeling ghosts, being able to heal people magically, stuff like that. And their family has used this to their benefit throughout time. They live in this really grand classic home, I believe in like New Orleans. I might be remembering wrong. At the time that we meet these characters, everything is going very well for everyone except for Charlie, who was born without a star on her palm. She does not have a special ability, and because of that, she's kind of ostracized by the family. It's actually difficult to read because it feels so mean. You can tell that the characters, like her family, love her, but they also, it feels like from her perspective, they think less of her because she's not special. And then conversely, her sister Miranda is the most special. She has the most power according to everybody in this family. She has like the craziest ability. And they kind of, from Charlie's perspective, it feels like they put Miranda up on a pedestal, and Charlie's job is kind of to just take care of Miranda when she's performing and using her ability to make money for the family. It feels really gross. And I feel like the author almost did it too well, where I felt that a lot of the members of this family were kind of irredeemable. So later, when things are revealed in the book, I didn't care. I was like, they suck. I don't care. They're horrible people. They were a bad family. Maybe I'm wrong. I lost my train of thought. I got interrupted. Let me try to get back on track. One Halloween night when Charlie is like 15 years old, everything goes awry. The family is torn apart. Everything is horrible. And we fast forward like 15 more years in the future, or some amount of years in the future. Charlie's in her mid-20s or maybe early 30s. She lives at Crimson House and she's caring for her kind of batshit grandmother. Her grandmother just stays in this attic room, refuses to leave, doesn't talk to anybody, doesn't talk to Charlie, doesn't communicate, doesn't take care of herself. Charlie is doing her absolute best. She's trying to keep food in the fridge and a roof on the house. And that's all she's really capable of. And honestly, she's not doing great. It's very expensive. The house has fallen into disrepair. She has sold all the things that she can sell. It's gotten to a point where she's doing like pretending to be a psychic, and she's doing these really performative ghost tours just to make a little bit of money. There is a very endearing side cast of characters who are extremely lovable, extremely likable. I wish that we saw more of them on page because I think that they're very lovable, and we get told that their relationship with Charlie is very deep and meaningful, but we don't really see it. So I do think that that is kind of a failing of the writing. Not a failing, it's a critique. Charlie is being plagued by this freaking guy who's a skeptic, and he is like bound and determined to destroy her. He has some sort of personal vendetta against her. She doesn't know why. She doesn't really know who he is. She just knows that she needs to make enough money to keep shit going, to stay afloat. And then the icing on the cake is that her estranged sister, Miranda, shows back up out of nowhere, acting like she's the star of the show and everybody needs to cater to her. She claims to Charlie that she has returned because their family is being haunted/hunted by some sort of entity that wants to destroy them. And she claims that she's here, returned the prodigal daughter, to protect Charlie and to restore their home and restore their family. It's kind of just a poop show of these sisters who have weird animosity. They have such a tense relationship. There is love underneath everything, but definitely the first few layers are like anger, resentment, animosity, rage, jealousy, and love is way down there. It's delightfully creepy in places. I don't want to say too much more about this book because I don't want to like spoil anything that happens, but there's a lot that is revealed as you read, and it does keep you going. It makes the book very compelling, and I did like that aspect of the writing. Overall, I gave it a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend it as a more casual, less scary Halloween read. I think people who enjoy things like practical magic, or maybe if you liked the original Charmed, you might like this as well. And it comes out in September of this year. Last but certainly not least, in May, I read Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. If you've seen any amount of my videos, then you know that I don't read like a lot of romance. It's not usually my thing. I don't dislike it, I just don't really seek it out. This was delightful. This was such a sweet, charming, and kind of like heart-wrenching and haunting novel. Just so good. I really, really enjoyed this. I know that some people have some issues with some of the content, but I think that it's just a reality of the time frame that it's set in. This book is set in the mid-80s, and it's about two high schoolers who fall in love. They are just two little star-crossed weirdos who meet each other at the most perfect and also most inconvenient time in both of their lives. They come from totally different worlds, and they fall in love, and it's perfect. And it is so, this book so perfectly captures being 16 or 17 and being in love for the first time. It gives you all of those like nostalgia feelings, not necessarily of your first boyfriend or girlfriend, but the feeling of falling in love for the first time. It's such a unique and formative experience that so many of us have around this age that it just hits all of those feelings. Like I said, it's this nostalgia. It's a familiar smell. It makes you feel like warm, but it also makes you feel longing and really makes you remember being a teenager in love. Eleanor is kind of a pessimist. She's had a really hard time. She's had a rough life. She has a ton of siblings who are all younger than her. Her mom refuses to leave a really bad situation. She has a really crappy abusive stepfather, and she is just trying to live under the radar. They are dirt poor, so she looks strange, and people think that it's intentional, but really it's kind of situational. Park comes from a family that seems to be doing pretty well. They're pretty conventional. However, his mother is Korean, and his mother and father met when his father was in the military, and he went to Korea. They got married, and he brought her back to the US. And they are more traditional, but also Park is half Korean, and it's the mid 80s in like middle America. So that is difficult for him. I saw a review where somebody criticized that the book spends a lot of time harping on Park being Korean. I don't I don't think it's harped on, but I do think it's brought up in the same way that kind of Black people are brought up in Brat Pack movies. I think it's Pretty in Pink. No, it's 16 Candles. There's a scene in 16 Candles where Molly Ringwald is walking down the hall with her friend, and they're talking about cars and boys. She says that she wants a black one. And friend is like, a black boy? And she says, no, a black Camaro, a pink boy. So it's very much like that, where it is casually kind of racist, but it's indicative of the time. That was completely normal in the mid 80s. I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm saying that that is how things were. If you're going to write a book set in that time, you should represent the time correctly. So I don't have a problem with that in the book. Like, I do have a problem with people being mistreated because of their race, but I think that showing the reality of how people acted towards people of different races and backgrounds should be realistic when you're writing a book that's set in a real place in a real time period. Without telling you too much of the story, because there's a lot that happens in here, and some of it is kind of devastating, and some of it is really beautiful and charming and delightful and sweet. But there is one annotation that I made, and I kind of want to read it because I feel like it almost made me cry. In this annotation, Park's mom has met Eleanor, and she doesn't like her. She doesn't think that she's good for Park. She wants Park to be with somebody much more conventional. And it's close to Thanksgiving, I think. Park and his mother go to the grocery store, and they happen to see Eleanor's family in the same grocery store. Park's mom says, "Oh, look, there's Eleanor. You should go say hello." Park says, "No, I can't," because she doesn't want her parents to know that we spend so much time together. It's at this point that Park's mom sees that Eleanor has, I think, 5 younger siblings, and it's kind of chaotic. I think we all have probably known a family like this who has too many mouths and not enough to go around sort of situation. His mother takes that very hard, and she seeks Park out later on, like the next day or later in the day, to tell him something. This is that scene. "You are Eleanor," she said. "She come from big family." Park shook the present gently. "I come from big family," his mom said. 3 little sisters, 3 little brothers. She held out her hand as if she were patting 6 heads. She'd had a wine cooler with dinner, and you could tell. She almost never talked about Korea. "What were their names?" Park asked. His mom's hand settled softly in her lap. "In big family," she said, "everything, everybody spreads so thin. Thin like paper, you know." She made a tearing gesture. "You know? Maybe 2 wine coolers." "I'm not sure," Park said. "Nobody gets enough," she said. "Nobody gets what they need. When you always hungry, you get hungry in your head." She tapped her forehead. "You know?" Park wasn't sure what to say. "You don't know," she said, shaking her head. "I don't want you to know. I'm sorry." That one interaction made me very teary-eyed. It did, like, it still is. Maybe because I'm pregnant, hormones are crazy. But it sounds so stupid to say, but that little passage, that little interaction made me feel so seen in a way that I don't really discuss in depth. The way that I grew up was not ideal. It was not safe, and it was not something that I would ever wish on anybody ever. The way that I was raised, I have always known I would never, ever allow to be the situation that my own children are brought up in. It just hit really hard because in what is supposed to be kind of broken English from this adult woman who grew up in a world that she doesn't let her children see, she says something so incredibly poignant. When you're always hungry, you get hungry in your mind. And it was startlingly and devastatingly honest and true to read. I felt it so deeply in that moment. I think that that is just a testament to Rainbow Rowell's ability to kind of take these very human, very real experiences and put them on the page for you. The entirety of the book is not that deep or heartbreaking. I promise there's a lot of joy, there's a lot of happiness, there's a lot of laughter, there's a lot of silliness in this book. All right, sports fan, that was it for my May wrap up. I know it wasn't very long, I didn't read very much, but I did read a little bit and I just wanted to share that with you. Thanks for sticking around, thanks for hanging out. All right, hi again. So the one book that I read in June was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. The reason that I read Divine Rivals, because I know that maybe that doesn't sound like something I would typically read, is because I have seen more than one person compare Wild Reverence to Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier. You may or may not know, Daughter of the Forest is one of my all-time, long-time favorite books. I love Daughter of the Forest, and I have been seeking that high for many years. I heard a bunch of people saying, not a bunch, but a handful of people saying that Wild Reverence is very similar in like the feeling that you get as Daughter of the Forest. Wild Reverence is a prequel, but it's the third written in the Letters of Enchantment duology. So I felt like I can't just jump into this book without the frame of reference of the world that this story takes place in. So I have to read Divine Rivals first, and then Ruthless Vows, and then I can read Wild Reverence, and hopefully it will live up. That is why I picked this up. And I'm actually pretty glad that I did, because I really enjoyed it. I gave Divine Rivals a 4 out of 5 stars, which might be a little bit generous. I think that if I gave half-star ratings, I would probably give it a 3.5. You know, I find myself saying that pretty often lately. Maybe I should just give half-star ratings. I don't know. I can't get into that. That's too much to think about. Anyway, I gave it a 5 on like vibes and storytelling because I just really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the world. It was a lot of fun. So I gave that a 5. That's just purely vibes. And then I gave it a 4 on skill because there were some little bits, mostly of world building, that I didn't love. So it doesn't get a perfect score on like the technical skill aspect, which I would have to go back and look at some of my reviews. I don't know that I've ever read a book that is technically perfect. I reserve that 5-star for something phenomenally well written, and I haven't read anything that I didn't have at least one issue with, or I didn't see at least one flaw with in a really long time. A 4 on technical skill is still a very high rating for me. I would definitely recommend this one, especially if you already read a lot of young adult romance. I hesitate to say fantasy romance because the fantasy aspects in this book are not that strong. It is set in a fantastical world, but there's not a lot of fantasy elements that actually affect the story. I would say that it's kind of similar to The Tainted Cup, where it takes place in this fantasy world, but a lot of the fantasy aspects of the world don't really affect the main characters in the story and the main plot of the story. I am hesitant to say I would reread this. I probably wouldn't. I don't do a lot of rereads. Me saying that I wouldn't reread something is not an insult. It's more like me saying that I will reread something is like really high praise. It kind of depends on how the second one goes if I'm willing to reread the first one, right? Anyway, in Divine Rivals, it, like I said, is like a fantasy world. There are, ethereal, is that the word I'm looking for? There are like supernatural beings that they call gods. I guess for all intents and purposes, they are gods. They seem to be immortal. They have some type of magical ability. It's kind of vague, but there are gods that exist, but the gods have been absent from this world for a very long time. Our story begins when a god or two gods have awoken and they begin calling people to war. They use humans to engage in warfare. Our main character's brother is called to war for the female god, and he ships out. We don't hear anything about him really, except how much our main character is concerned for him and misses him and is scared for him. Our main character is a young woman named Iris who wants nothing more than to be a journalist. She loves to write, and she gets that opportunity when she takes a paid internship with a newspaper. There is a caveat. She is in direct competition with an affluent young man who kind of has the world at his disposal, and he is actually a competent writer as well. So he is real competition for her. They are competing for a permanent columnist position at this newspaper. Iris does have some other things kind of working against her. She has a lot going on in her personal life. She doesn't have a lot of resources, and she struggles with her mother. She struggles with her brother being gone. There is kind of an undercurrent to the story of the history of these gods and what this war is really about. Unfortunately, the book does not go into this very much. I hope that the second book will go into it more, because I am very curious about these two characters within the story that we don't see or interact with, but they manipulate everything that's happening by the nature of them being gods at war, if that makes sense. Without giving too much away, there is some romantic tension between Iris and her rival, Roman Kit. I'm not going to spoil any of that. I'm going to let you enjoy it for yourself. There are some magic letters involved that these characters write to each other. It is very charming. It's very endearing. It's sweet. And if there wasn't like trench warfare looming in the background of this story, it would feel like cozy. It is kind of that cute. The relationship between Iris and Roman is very cute. It is very endearing. The backdrop is rough. There's a lot happening in this world that is pretty upsetting and pretty stressful and anxiety inducing. So I don't want to say that it's cozy, but I feel like just the romantic aspect is very cozy and cute and heartwarming. I enjoyed Divine Rivals quite a bit. I will eventually jump into Ruthless Vows. I don't know when. I'm not holding myself to any strict timelines on that. I'll get to it when I get to it. I'll probably wait a little while because my husband read Divine Rivals at the same time that I did. I would need to wait at least for him to finish the book that he's reading right now, and I'm reading something else right now. I want to wait until we both have like an open space in what we're reading so that we can read them at the same time. That was the entirety of my June wrap up. It was one book. I did enjoy it, so I guess that is a positive. That means it was a successful month. If you made it this far, thanks for hanging out.